All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the psychology of high intelligence. And I mean, what it really looks like. Beyond all those movie cliches and stereotypes we've all seen.
So when I say genius, what's the first image that pops into your head? Is it, some super smart person, always talking, maybe scribbling crazy equations on a whiteboard? But what if the real signs of high intelligence are actually way quieter, much more subtle than all that?
And this right here, this contrast, this really gets to the heart of it. The stereotype, right? It's someone who always has the answer. But the reality? Well, psychological research tells us it's actually someone who's totally comfortable saying, I don't know. Someone who observes way more than they speak and who is driven by pure curiosity, not by a need to show off how much they know.
I love this quote because it just nails the core idea. Think about it. We're not talking about a brain that's just a hard drive stuffed with facts. No, it's more like a unique operating system. It's about how the brain processes the world. And this shows up in some surprisingly common everyday habits. Okay, so first up, let's look at the habits of the inner mind. We're talking about the internal world of a high IQ person.
All right, habit number 1. They spend a lot of time alone. Now, this gets mistaken for being antisocial all the time. But for a really active mind, it's not just nice, it's essential. Seriously, it's not about disliking people. It's all about needing that space to actually think. And get this, it's not just a preference, it's almost a biological need. You see, the prefrontal cortex, that's kind of the brain's CEO, the part that handles all our planning and deep thinking. It literally needs that quiet time to do its job. It needs space to process ideas, to connect the dots, and just reflect without a million things coming at it. Okay, now for habit number 2, and this one might sound a little strange. They talk to themselves. Yeah, I know. You see someone muttering to themselves and your first thought is, that's a bit odd. But it turns out it can be an incredibly powerful tool for your brain. There's actually a psychological term for it, self-directed speech. And all it really means is that it's a way to organize your thoughts on the outside. When you talk yourself through something, you're actually helping your brain focus and lock that information into your working memory. Habit number 3, they overthink small things. You know that person who analyzes every tiny decision like to death? Well, here's the thing. That powerful analytical brain that can solve huge, complex problems, it doesn't just have an off switch. So that same brain power gets pointed at everything, from replaying a conversation to figuring out what to have for lunch. It's not really indecision, it's just the brain doing what it does best, exploring all the possibilities. So that's the inner world. But how does all that translate to the outside? Let's move on to how they see the world. This is all about a different kind of perception. And habit number 4 is a big one. They are constantly curious. For a high IQ mind, curiosity isn't a hobby. It's like a constant engine that's always running. And we're not just talking about the big philosophical questions. It's about, why do everyday things work the way they do? Why do people act that way? Their brain is just a natural-born pattern-seeking machine. Now, habit number 5 might be the most counterintuitive one of all. They're comfortable saying, I don't know. See, true intelligence isn't about having all the answers. It's about understanding just how much you don't know. Being able to admit that isn't a weakness. It's a sign of real intellectual confidence. And it's what opens the door to actually learning something new. And there's actually a famous psychological principle that backs this up. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Basically, it says that people with low ability in something tend to overestimate how good they are. But the highly intelligent, they often do the exact opposite. They're so aware of all the complexities that they're much more likely to know what they don't know. So let's just pause and think about that for a second. That person who spends a lot of time alone, we might call them aloof. The person who says, I don't know a lot, we might think they're not confident. It really makes you wonder, right? How often do we misinterpret these behaviors when really they're the signs of a mind that's deeply at work? Okay, that brings us to our next section, the mark of a flexible mind. This is all about adapting and analyzing. So, habit number 6, they change their minds. Digging in your heels and sticking to a belief, even when new evidence pops up, that's not really a sign of strength. For a truly intelligent person, their beliefs are more like, working theories. They're flexible models of reality that are always ready to be updated when better information comes along. And the name for this trait is cognitive flexibility. It is a key marker of advanced problem solving. It's simply the brain's ability to adapt its thinking when it gets new information. You can think of it like updating the software on your computer. You wouldn't want to be stuck with the factory settings forever, right? Habit number 7. They observe more than they speak. So instead of being the first person to jump into a conversation, a highly intelligent person often hangs back at first. But they're not being passive. They're actively gathering data. They're watching the dynamics in the room, picking up on cues, and analyzing patterns, all before they decide to speak. And this internal process happens super fast, often without them even thinking about it. It's a quick cycle. They observe the dynamics, gather information, analyze the cues, and only then do they respond. It's a much more thoughtful, data-driven way to interact with people. And there are a couple of other interesting markers of a flexible mind, too. For instance, a really strong, complex sense of humor. I mean, to get a clever joke, your brain has to see patterns, break expectations, and connect things that don't seem related. And kind of weirdly, some studies even suggest a link between high IQ and being a night owl, maybe because their minds just adapt more easily to different schedules. So, okay, we've gone through all these different habits. What's the big takeaway here? What's the one thing that ties it all together? Well, it really all comes down to one core idea. And our last habit, number 10, is that they constantly search for meaning, because all of that curiosity we talked about, it naturally leads to bigger questions. A highly intelligent mind is often just more tuned into all the complexities of life, and that awareness almost forces a deeper reflection on, purpose and why we're all doing the things we do. And this quote right here just says it all, doesn't it? If you take away only one thing from this, let it be this. Intelligence isn't a test score. It's not a list of facts you've memorized. At its absolute core, intelligence is about curiosity. It's a brain that just can't stop exploring patterns, questioning assumptions, and trying to understand. So, I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. Forget about all the stereotypes and the test scores for a minute. Just ask yourself this one simple question. What puzzles is your brain exploring right now? Because that curiosity, that's the real engine of intelligence.